All right, my name is Casey Lee, and this is my Capstone project. So the first step was planning the project by asking questions. Wide World Importers is a novelty goods importer and distributor, wholesale, and it's important for the personnel and stakeholders of WWI to understand WWI's profitability as it relates to operations. So some of the questions I asked were originally, how do suppliers relate to profitability? How do customers relate to profitability? Is there a relationship between suppliers and customers? And what sort of stock movement is occurring amongst suppliers? So then what I did is I loaded the data set and prepared the data. So I, of course, utilized SQL or SQL and wrote queries for both distinct suppliers as well as distinct customers. So this screenshot here is from the distinct suppliers query. In this query, I really wanted to capture the stock movement quantity, which was a calculation created in a column within the query. And I grouped this stock movement by certain criteria as well in my query. So then I did the same thing for similar logic in for distinct customers. I actually utilized a query that would group by customer ID, customer key, customer name, category, and the date. So I actually brought in a couple different elements from the fact and dimension tables and was able to utilize this query to group the information needed for the date, the stock item key, as well as customer keys. So this was more of a customer facing table and profitability table as well. So then submit plan and business questions. So I was able to narrow down my questions more specifically in relation to two categories, operations and profitability. So for operations, my question was, what was the relationship between distinct suppliers and customers within each fiscal year? Profitability related question was, how did the total profit change during each fiscal year? And then my third question is actually tying the two together. So what are the forecasts telling stakeholders of WWI about the next coming week after fiscal year 2016? How does this relate to the trend of total profit? So I'll be tying in operations and profitability in that last question as it relates to the forecasting models I have written scripts for as well. So it's important that WWI understands what historically has happened in order to help determine, make future decisions with, of course, the help of forecasting as well. So step 5 and 6 was visualizing and modeling the data. So this was really to represent after I wrote my queries in SQL, I decided to import the queries into Power BI. So this was done through two queries, which is exactly what I wrote in SQL. And then I drew the relationship within Power BI to connect the two queries. That way, for any filtering, the data would be linked together, and one wouldn't be static while the other one was changing. So they would both be changing now. Step 5 and 6, this is the exact script that I wrote in R to determine my forecasting models. So I implemented and integrated this code into Power BI. After I wrote it into RStudio, I used Power BI's integration for R. And so what does this look like? So my dashboard in step 7, you'll see the two forecasting R scripts on the top and bottom of the left hand side. So this is the operations and profitability dashboard. So you can see the distinct suppliers forecast for 7 days or for a week, and the distinct customers forecast for the next week or 7 days, as well as the total profit by week number, the stock movement quantity by supplier name, and then some filtering options for stakeholders to utilize to jump from one fiscal year to the next. So answering the business questions that I determined from before. So I actually went through each fiscal year and wrote descriptions in 2013. You can notice this very large drop off here in the beginning for distinct suppliers. So that indicates to me that the suppliers, maybe it was a little rocky at first, or there was a lot of stock coming in, but then it leveled out. For distinct customers, it fluctuated pretty steadily up and down throughout the fiscal year. And then we can see our stock movement by supplier and our profitability as well by week. And then we have 2014, pretty steady in terms of distinct suppliers, and then distinct customers, similar trends as the previous year. You can notice a little bit more movement on the stock movement quantity. There is actually some negative. And then 2015, suppliers are displaying similar trends to 2014, with customers starting to have more drastic highs and lows. So you can see those peaks pretty high and pretty low compared to previous fiscal years. And our profitability actually starting lower, peaking up pretty high, and then steadily going down. 2016, we have a little spike in the beginning, but pretty actually getting a little wide with some drastic high and lows in the customer side. And then our profitability, I will go into, starts to tank after week 20, which is interesting to note. So how did the total profit change each year? As discussed previously, profitability fluctuated pretty steadily throughout all years, 2013 through 2015. The exception was 2016 when it started to dip after week 20. This could be for several reasons, for which I will go into on the next couple slides here. So in this slide, we're actually going into more of the 2016. Why did the profitability drop off, and what does the next 7 days look like? So the next 7 days looks like, from an operations standpoint, distinct suppliers, pretty steady, but it's going to level out again. So I don't see a pattern really changing there. The distinct customers forecast, it's going to flatten out for the next 7 days. And what's interesting about that is you can see the total profit by week number drastically shooting down after 20. This could indicate that maybe there's some increased costs from suppliers. Maybe our inventory is sitting too long, in which case we'll want to audit the inventory turnover, and or perhaps the fiscal year is just not over yet, or there's still some outstanding invoices or reporting that needs to be done. So I would recommend stakeholders have the sales coordinate with the operations team to determine what reasons and supplemental reasons are causing this drop off in profitability. And that is my project. Thank you.